Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Geekverse podcast with your crew. What are we, the Master Cheeks?
We're the Pablos, remember?
Or the Pablos, that's right. I
Or
got
Master
Master Cheeks on
Cheeks,
the
whatever you
brain.
wanna call it.
I mean, one and the same. You can't have Pablo without the Master Cheeks, and one the other way as well, right?
That's true. One and the same.
Mhm.
We are here because we are continuing our trek across Middle Earth to cover the Rings of Power show. Now, this is episode 4.
Five.
I'll just... 5.
You missed 4 last week.
I missed
so.
4. That's right.
We already did 4, Taylor. I'm sorry.
Now, you did watch episode 5 tonight. That's correct.
I did watch episode
Okay,
5
okay.
tonight, so we are on the right track. But yes, my name is really I got no nickname. I'll just go Numenor's fucked Taylor Field, and I'm joined by
I am the Smith, Kirkland Patzer.
I'm the Delve Master, Dylan Moss.
yes. So we're gonna be getting into some juicy non-spoilers first, or what do we do? Do we do non-spoilers first? Yeah, we do, and then spoilers with TV shows. It's been so long. I feel like I'm about to lunch.
It's been a few weeks for you.
It's been a few weeks.
2 whole weeks.
Before we get to that, just a couple of quick little plugs. Now, I want to shout out all of our Patreon producers here: Aaron Braden, April of Darkness, Jack Grant, Mud, Sam, Super Bad Mike, The God Loves Me, 69, Jeremy Reiner, you legend. Forgot about you. I'm so sorry. But yes, you can check out our Patreon. We get tons of ad-free early content, retrospectives, and news episodes ad-free. It's great. It's a great place to be. And if you join some of those special tiers, then you get to pick certain things for us to retro and watch, which is great. We just did Promising Young Woman. Thank you to Mike for that request. What else do we got popping off? Anything side quest going on right now?
Yeah, me and Kirkland had a fun side quest this week, just talking about all the games we've been playing lately. This is one of those episodes. And then Taylor, you're joining me next week for some other good stuff. So yeah, side quest popping off.
I'm excited to join you because there is some Call of Duty updates for Halloween that I'm excited to talk about.
Ooh,
So,
okay, sounds good.
yeah, it'll be fun. In the general feeds, we have, what do we have? We have our Beetlejuice review, and then we have Joker Folie à Deux that's coming up pretty quickly here. So yeah,
We also
stay
just
tuned.
did a spicy newscast where we talked about Lord of the Rings
Mm.
rumors for like a good 45 minutes, I feel like. So for anyone listening to this, go check that out. Talked about I was about to say the Rings of Gollum, but that's not what that movie's called. What is it? The
I mean,
Hunt for Gollum.
you never know. Could
You
be
might rebrand it. It's all about the
now I'm
rings
picturing
nowadays.
Gollum with multiple rings, and
All
that
over
just
his
sounds
fingers.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. But no, we talked about those rumors. That was some fun discussions there.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, let's get into this episode 5, like non-spoiler. So who wants to take the torch? Let's take the Barad-dûr Tower and just send it.
I'll
Yeah. I'll let Dylan go.
I'll take the torch and hand it to Kirkland and let
Oh.
him guide us through the darkness of Khazad-dûm.
What confusion. Yeah, I think overall I am more positive this week than last week. Last week's episode. I thought it was I thought some of our interactions among certain characters was nice and juicy, and there's some nice buildup of tension amongst parties at play here. So that was nice to have. I feel like I don't know. Now we're over halfway for this second season now, and I feel like I keep saying this where I'm like, yeah, I know, like I set my expectations well, and I feel like I'm nice and like settled. I won't be disappointed now, but like there's still things that happen, and it's just like, oh man, like why do we have to do this? I feel like it's just bringing down the overall story for myself, at least, with some of the decisions that we're making to kind of maybe answer questions that don't need answering, or maybe showing certain characters' weaknesses that I always thought they didn't have, but here we are. But for the most part, I still think there's some nice juice in this episode. This felt like a more dwarven episode than most, and I really like this, like the showcasing of the dwarves throughout the show. I think even just seeing Khazad-dûm, we've seen it many times already, but just like some of the wide shots that they have, it's like, fuck, what a great visual representation of this dwarven kingdom, especially in like the height of its power comparing to where we see it in the the later with our fellowship going through those ruins. Like it's just such a different place, so I do like to see more of that. And yeah, for the most part, I think this episode was doing a good job at kind of showing the rifts amongst certain people that weren't rifted in the past. That's my little spoiler-free description of that. But yeah, I think it was an all right episode. Definitely a step up from last week, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm curious how it's going to be rounding out here in the next couple of weeks. Because it's 8 episodes total?
Yeah.
Yeah,
More.
okay.
3 more to go.
3 more episodes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I for some reason I thought it was just 2 more, but like to end on 7, that doesn't really make sense. So
7
I'm glad-
rings for the dwarf lords, though, right?
Oh.
We'll need 9 for the rings of men. Now that we're
True,
getting
yeah.
close to that, but yeah, I think I'll kind of leave it there and unravel the rest with you guys when we get there.
Yeah. So I guess for anyone who maybe forgets or didn't listen to our previous episodes, like this season's not been my cup of tea. The first half really weak. Last week's episode was particularly just the bottom of the barrel for me. But I am happy to report that this episode was a complete turnaround. I
Nice.
loved this episode. I thought it was fantastic. It's definitely my favorite of the season, and maybe one of my favorites in the whole series so far. It's been a bit since I've rewatched season 1, but this episode was fantastic. You know, one of my biggest criticisms with last week's episode is it was just not spending the time where I wanted to spend it. We were spending a lot of time with some random factions and some of the storylines that I'm not as fond of. And we specifically didn't do anything with the dwarves and Khazad-dûm. We didn't do anything with Eringion, especially with how much was set up in the previous episodes of what is going on there. And so that's why it was really disappointing. But this episode was like 90% just those 2 storylines, and then a little bit with Galadriel, and then like a little bit with Numenor as well. So it was focusing on the things I wanted, and those 2 sections, everything with Eringion, Celebrimbor, and everything with the dwarves, fantastic stuff. And you know what? Not a ounce of action in there too. Just really good dialogue, really good acting all around. So yeah, I freaking loved this episode. It was a really great turnaround. Stuff in Numenor was, it was okay. We can talk about it. I think it was actually a little bit better than we've had in those first 4 episodes, like for that location and those characters. It's still not great, but it was at least better than the rest. And maybe that's just because the rest of the episode was surrounded by really good stuff as well. But I don't know. I just feel like whoever, I know with these shows, it's like sometimes you have different writers for different episodes, different people directing each episode. Whatever it is, I don't know if this episode differs from the previous ones, but I feel like whoever was writing and directing this episode really just got it right, and definitely gives me some hope for the rest of the season. Hopefully it stays this quality, because if it does, then overall I think the season's going to be great for me, because if we can get a 4-episode string in the end there, that'll really do it for me. So we even got some confirmation this week that Amazon's still planning for 5 seasons of this show, so buckle up. There's going to be a lot more, and especially with some of the stuff we got here, I'm kind of more excited for that. So yeah, hopefully the streak continues next week, because I just loved this episode. So Taylor, I guess we also got to hear from you on what you thought about last week's episode quickly.
Or
Yeah,
if
I'll
you
make it
watched it.
Well, I did watch it. I'll make it very brief. Like last week's episode, I thought it was fun seeing certain characters, like your Tom Bombadil and whatnot. But for the most part, I'm not fully engaged in the Harfoots or the what are they? The suits, the
Stores.
stores.
The
Yeah, not the
stewards, yeah.
suits. The stewards. Yeah, I'm not
The
totally
suits.
sold on them. The suits. So. We'll see. We'll see when we kind of touch more base on that storyline moving the next few episodes. But I am just thinking, though, that so far it hasn't been the most hottest. I'm kind of like you, Dylan, where I feel like it's been similar. There's some things that I did like in those first 3 episodes, and it did get me pretty hyped. I am liking the Sauron stuff, and I wish that we could have a lot more focus on that Sauron take on things. And I feel like, again, I'm excited to talk about this episode now, because this episode was freaking awesome. I freaking
Hell yeah.
loved it from start to finish. It was planting seeds that was just getting me just stoked. I just couldn't wait. This felt to me like, okay, this really does feel like Lord of the Rings in this episode. It's great. And so I was really jiving with it, really, really enjoying it. Again, not much of a spoiler, but just touching base on like the dwarf storyline more in this episode was really nice, because I think I'm really, really liking that arc the most out of all of the character stories so far, then followed up by like the elves. But I think that they did a lot of good with this episode, and it has just ended on the cliffhanger was just huge. I'm like, oh, I need the next 3 episodes, and if the next 3 episodes keep this consistency, then I'd be super ecstatic going into like a 3rd season or a 4th season. So I'm just really, really looking forward and hoping that we don't get like a the flood introduced in the final episode scenario where no more season 3, like it's canned right when we got to the good part, right? So I'm hoping that this show doesn't drop the ball, because I see you guys talking on Discord that it's got a lot more lower viewership than season 1 has, so it is concerning, but hopefully they keep it going.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. Like, it's lower, but it's still like really good viewership as far as like streaming shows go, and like maybe Amazon stuff specifically. So I don't think it's in the tanks or anything. I think it's just maybe a little bit of that hype is gone from what the first season was, which makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
new and shiny anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And I
I
guess
also feel like the marketing for the season wasn't nearly as overpowering as that first one. I just remember like I feel like every couple days we were getting like some new poster of a character and trailers out the ass, like just
Yeah.
getting so much stuff. They even like put it in theaters as like a special thing. So I just
Right.
feel like they went a lot more overboard. So maybe that's where the viewership as well, just people not even knowing that it's like everyone in my personal life that I know watched the first season has not started this one yet, and I think it's just because they didn't even know it was out yet. So I think that's just some of that knowledge isn't as out there.
Well, they did those posters. You're right about the posters of the characters, but they did the posters just of their hands, and everyone was like conspiracy theories, like of whose like hand this is. Yeah, crazy times. But
Yeah.
that's
What a
all I
long
got
time.
for
What a long time since
non-spoilers.
then. I remember like seeing the Sauron looking one. It's like there's no chance Sauron's gonna be in this. Like, come on,
Adar.
there's no way. And then
Adar.
here we are now.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Do you guys have anything else you want to add, non-spoilers?
Absolutely not.
Nope.
Absolutely not. Then we're going to take our first ad break, which you can get ad-free if you check out our Patreon. But yeah, we will be right back. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. So, where do we start?
I know you know where you want to start here.
I want to go to Numenor, the
Yes.
land of
Okay,
men.
get it out of the
here. Yeah, I actually quite liked what was going on in Numenor here. I think my least favorite scene was also in Numenor, which is kind of funny. But I really like just the growing tension that's shown amongst the people that are basically overthrowing Muriel, right, and supporting Ar-Pharazôn as like the new king, and then like the old guard that are like loyal to Muriel. And I like that we're just getting time to see like actual like the boots on the ground of like those soldiers that are now being stripped of their ranks, as well as like just Ar-Pharazôn's men just taking over, and that like early like flames of this like big turmoil that's going to be happening, because I can guarantee it's not going to end well for all of these characters and what's going on in the long run. But I just like at this stage at least kind of where people are at, because it still seems like they have a lot in common, even though they are like at each other's throats. Because I liked the whole thing with the Palantir and the conversation that Elendil has with his daughter, and how she's basically just like calling it witchcraft, and like we shouldn't be using these tools, like this is just like the elves witchcraft. And then he's like, his perspective on it is that they're like sacred objects, that like this is really what allows us to be even living here on Numenor. It is like the gifts from the elves and the Valar, and I like just that kind of being showcased there. Although I thought maybe some of the dialogue, like Kemen, that character, I think he's like
Is that the Dweeby
Ar-Pharazôn's-
guy? Is that
I
his
think he's
name?
like his son, the one that killed
Okay.
That's the sun, yeah.
Isildur's buddy. I
Valendil,
fucking
is
hate
that
this
guy's
guy
name?
so much. But like, I'm supposed to, right? He's supposed to be
Yeah.
a Sneevling. He's like a Game of Thrones character, for example.
He's like
but-
Worm Tongue, but just like a cringe little kid instead of like some creepy guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I was hating him for the most part, and now it's like I just hate him the way that he's like supposed to be written, which is good. Like I'm supposed to be hating him. It's supposed to be like a Worm Tongue type ordeal. But I really just hated the sequence of them like in the actual chapel. I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but I mostly just liked the sequence between Ar-Pharazôn and Kemen, like the dweeby guy, and then the sequence when Elendil like gives up his sword, and they kind of have like, I don't know, just those two sequences. Those were like probably my favorite Numenor scenes we've had so far this season. Just because it's starting to show like the super clear divide amongst these two just different factions of Numenorians here. And this is really going to be like the building blocks on kind of what Ar-Pharazôn's like stance is going forward, and like the people that are loyal to him. And because like they're all about just basically shutting themselves or distancing themselves from the elves and like their technologies, for lack of a better term. So I still found like some of the things that he said, they felt rather hypocritical because like he still seems like he's speaking in like prophetic speeches when he's talking to Kemen, how like I had a vision when your mom was basically breastfeeding you that you're gonna die like a horrible death, and because like where is he getting these visions from? Like there's got to be some sort of outside influence, and maybe that's gonna be showcased when we kind of figure out he's aligning with some darker forces. So I'm intrigued with what's going forward with Numenorian stuff, because that was probably like the thing I was the most excited for actually going into even just season 1, like getting to actually see Numenor, because we've never seen it before on screen. And I'm kind of liking what's happening right now with some of those players. And like for Elendil's daughter, I feel like she was such a background character up until really this episode actually, so it's kind of nice to see her. I'm assuming she's going to be more involved for the rest of the show, at least for this season. So yeah, it's nice to see her actually doing something as opposed to just being in the background.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we got that shot too. It's like it wasn't like the end of the episode cliffhanger, but it was a cliffhanger from that Numenor section, which is Arfarzon. My God,
Nice.
that name. It's so hard to say. Where he is up in that tower again, and he's approaching the Palantir. We don't really see him do anything with it, but he's at least up there. So do you guys think that he has been communicating with it in private, or is that like his first time going back there? Like what do you think's going on there? What's the order of events?
That's where I was kind of saying it seems like he's kind of hypocritical, because it almost seems like
definitely.
he has been using it, and if he hasn't, I guarantee he's going to be abusing that thing in the next couple of viewings.
And it seems like something he would want to hide from everyone.
Yeah.
Like I have to imagine that Arian, like Elendil's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the dweeby guy, I don't know if he would care about that maybe, but I think she would be. I mean, that was the whole reason why she turned against Muriel in the first place, right? So I think she would be pretty opposed to that. So yeah, I don't know. I think that will be something that will pop up in the future potentially, but probably just shows more of his evil inclinations. I still think he's unfortunately like just a little too generic of like the villain of Numenor at the moment. And I mean, that's going to change soon because the orcs are about to attack, it seems like. So I'm sure the villain of Numenor is going to be shifted to that angle rather than just him. But I think you're right. Like I thought the drama of this sequence was pretty good for the most part. I think one of my big issues when we had that scene when our Farzar takes control essentially of the kingdom, and everyone's like immediately cheering for him. They're immediately against Muriel, and it's like, wow, this seemed like so quick. And it seems like these people don't have personalities, but I think it was really nice to get that sequence when everyone who was loyal to her is having to turn in their armor and their weapons and outfits and things like this. And it shows that, oh yeah, these people do have they do have their own thoughts, and some of them are still, even in that scene, they're going against the people and saying, we stand with you, Captain, what a great job you did. And so there's like already these kind of little factions that aren't just one or two key characters that are against Ar-Pharazôn, but it's like, okay, the people of Numenor as well. There's these little sub factions within it. So I think all that stuff is pretty interesting. It's just, yeah, maybe not some of the most compelling characters are unfortunately in that, and like none of our favorite characters are in Numenor right now, right? So it's just like naturally a little bit harder to connect with it. I'm kind of surprised how quickly this orc thing, like it feels like the next time we're in Numenor is when orcs are going to be attacking, and I maybe wanted a bit more. I don't know, maybe that stuff will be interesting. Like maybe our Farzan's working with them to some extent, but that seems like a stretch from what we've seen so far. But I don't know, that could be what we're seeing with the Palantir. Maybe he's been communicating with them.
Did I miss something about them invading Numenor? Because I don't actually remember.
Oh,
that
sorry,
happened.
Ringion. I totally mixed
Ringion,
that up.
okay.
Because
Totally
Numenor is
orcs
like
going
an
to
island,
Numenor.
right? And I'm like, I saw them come out of some trees, but I don't think
The cities from afar look similar, so ignore
fair.
that last part. But yeah, so I guess it will be interesting to see what Ar-Pharazôn on, who he's communicating with them, like who he's working with on the outside, if anyone yet, or maybe that's just like just planting the seeds for that to happen soon enough here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had something, but I lost it when we were talking about Aragon there. It'll come back, I'm sure. Taylor, what do you think about Numenor?
Yeah, Numenor is just totally screwed. It's yeah, I mean, obviously we know that there's going to be a flood, it's going to be the downfall, but seeing the division happening here, I really, really like that. it's nice to kind of get it a little bit more emphasized. And yeah, this guy, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name. He's taken over because this eagle showed up randomly and he just took full wind of that, which I'm still laughing about. But I think it's also quite humorous, but probably due to the fact that they're being stalked, that wherever they are, like doing a little ceremony, like they strut in there, like, oh, this temple's closed. You can't just. It's gonna be a new aqueduct. Like they just totally crap on their little ceremony. I mean, did they have to go in and do that at 3 o'clock in the morning? Yes, they did, because it was Elendil and the boys were all there having a little bit of a ceremony for their fallen. So yeah, it's interesting that everyone is basically just being shafted that's loyal to the queen, because we're going to get them, I'm assuming, fleeing Numenor and going to Middle Earth, and they're going to be basically creating the new, I mean, well, they got the Numenor outpost, right, that Isildur's residing in currently. So
That's the other thing that's interesting too with Numenor is like Numenor is actually much bigger than they've shown so far in the show, and I don't think it's just a matter of like they've shrunken Numenor in the show. I just think there's other areas of Numenor that we haven't really gone to, because technically, I'm pretty sure it was said in season 1 that like Anarion, which is Isildur's brother, is still on Numenor. I think he's like to the west of it, and pardon me, when Elendil has the conversation with Muriel about, she's asking him what he saw in the Palantir, right? And like if it was the same thing that he saw, and we get like a shot of him on horseback, like leaving. And I actually like went back and rewatched the sequence, because it actually, I thought it was like on Middle Earth, but it actually is Numenor that you see in the background, because you can see the statue of oh my god, I forget his name. Ariandil or something like that. I'm pretty sure it's Elrond's dad. But yeah, you see it in the background, like smoking, as if there's like fires going on, and that's actually like a pretty interesting like event that happens in the book, if it's what I'm kind of thinking it is. So I won't really detail what that is, but he's fleeing the city, and of course I had to do some diving. Basically what the orientation of what it was, it looks like he's actually fleeing to the west, so it like going in the direction of an Arion, which gets me super fucking hyped, because I would be so hyped if we get an Arion. Like probably not a lot in this season, mostly going forward, but I just think that would be a really badass like pair up if Elendil goes up and just has another ally, and then they can figure out what to do after that point. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting little conversation between him and Muriel. And then when I went back and kind of rewatched the sequence, and again, like it could just be a dream sequence that means nothing, but I'm kind of thinking that actually is going to be a scene that does happen, potentially even at the end of this season. And then yeah, that would really set us up for kind of what Numenor is going to be like in the next season, if it lasts that long. But I definitely think it will.
mm-hmm. The use of the Palantir, I think, because you guys touched base about this new false king using it, I think this is the first time. I think he has not gotten his fingers worked up on it yet, and so he pulled that cloth off, and no one knows that he's doing it. I agree with that too. I think that he's, like you said, big hypocrite. And it's interesting what the queen was saying, because when she was talking to Elendil, that they have a different path for Numenor, but the way she was talking sounded like, okay, Numenor has to go through this destruction right now to kind of come out on top, which I thought was kind of weird. But she elaborates too that all she saw was just the ocean taking back Numenor. So yeah, they're dropping some little cues in here that I'm trying to understand and trying to pick up on, but I guess we'll just see. Time will tell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Elendil's daughter, my God, she thinks she's doing the right thing. Like when they're like, "Oh, whose orders to take our swords away?" and they just pan over to her. I'm like, "Oh, I don't like to use the B word, but you are a B word right now. Why would you?" I mean, she's like picking favorites. Like, "I'll talk to the king, and maybe we can spare you." It's like, "Oh, get out of here!" And now that he's dead, it's probably gonna turn her back to the good side, I imagine.
I imagine she's gonna like figure out that Ar-Pharazôn's doing some Palantiri things, and she's very against it, as Dylan already kind of highlighted there. And I think that'll kind of be her switch over moment, and she ends up helping. Maybe that's when we get that Palantir scene where like Elendil escapes. Maybe she kind of helps him get out of there with a horse. I don't know.
Yeah, or the other thing could be if or rather when she reunites with the Isildur, and then that's when she could have a switch
Because she thinks he's
coming
dead
back.
right now.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's like part of her reasoning for this is like Muriel as a queen like was not able to protect him, right? Which is part of the reason. So maybe when she reconnects with him, but like I don't really see when that will happen. Like we haven't seen from Isildur really like that motivation to go back there right now, right? Like has that been what he's been talking about in this first half of the season when you've seen him?
Not really. He's just
Yeah.
kind of figuring out what the fuck happened after that battle. He's
So like I
picking
don't know
up
if
the
that's something that
pieces.
would happen this season. So maybe there's like these
Yeah,
other
probably not.
things. Maybe there's more going on there before they reconnect next season, I suppose. Or maybe
Yeah,
she dies. I don't know. And and then Isildur has some other journey that he has to go on when he finds that
He has
information
a
out
journey,
later
all
on.
right.
Yeah. This guy's on quite the journeys.
I don't
Well-
really
Those are
have
my
anything else to add on
Numenorean
Numenor.
thoughts, yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we venture from here? Where's the boats taking us?
Well, it naturally takes us to Middle Earth, right? Got
Oh.
some
Naturally.
some Middle Earth sequences.
Let's talk about some dwarves a little bit because I missed them
Hell yeah.
a lot last week. So I think what I loved so much about this whole sequence, and there's a lot to it, but I think my favorite part is just seeing someone else being corrupted by the power of the rings. Like that's just very fun to see a different angle on that. Because we've seen it happen many times to many different characters over the year with the One Ring, but to get it with this ring, it's a very similar sort of situation that's going on, and we're just kind of in phase one of the process. But I think they did a good job of it here, where in this one episode is when King Durin is starting to change a little bit. Obviously, his son is really picking up on like you're not behaving like you normally would. I feel like there's really something wrong with these rings. But he hasn't gone full evil yet. He's really just like super corrupt at this point where he's just trying to make a bunch of money and risking the lives of, or really just the structural integrity of like their home, which of course in turn could be the lives of all the people here. So I just really like to see that turn in the character and just the power that he felt when following the ring, found some light, and just like the look on his face when that happened. And then just everything that kind of follows through there. So I just thought that whole sequence was really fun from his perspective. Yeah, to see someone else being corrupt by this ring.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I was trying to think in retrospect here because you have the 3 elven rings that were made devoid of Sauron. Sauron was really just kind of learning and scoping it. Celebrimbor did that. And then you have these rings, which Sauron assisted with, but he necessarily didn't like I feel like it was him planting like the little seeds in there because the dwarven rings, like they're making them isolated and greedy and whatnot, at least their downfall. And some people might speculate, oh, well, the reason that Sauron gave Durin this ring was because then Durin would dig deeper and unleash the Balrog. But that's not the case because I'm pretty sure Sauron doesn't know that the Balrog is down there. It's just a complete fluke, and the greed is what's gonna.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And it's just kind of like each stage, it's progressively getting worse because you have the pure rings for the elves, then you got the dwarfs, which got, it's a little questionable, and then you got the rings for men that are just going to be totally fucked, and you got the One Ring, which that One Ring, I thought for sure he was going to be single-handedly making these rings for the men, and that's why these rings would be the worst because they turns them into the wraiths. But yeah, this is just leading him up to just building his own little index finger piece of jewelry. So
Yeah, like the reason why the rings for the men are just so effective is because men are just so easily corrupted compared to the other races of Middle Earth. It's kind of what, but like he still kind of has pretty sure the exact same level of corruption, I guess, that he did to the dwarven rings and the rings of men there. But yeah, I was kind of torn in the sequence because initially I was just like I kind of like the certain traits that the One Ring has on the One Ring, and like just it being the One Ring that has these traits, kind of like I forget her name, but Celebrimbor's assistant that kind of goes invisible. Like she goes to the unseen realm and she's kind of freaking out, and then she's like swinging a hammer around. That's when they get her to take off the ring. Like just things like that. It's just like I kind of wish it was just like the one ring that had these traits, but it's still kind of fun in these sequences to show that. And I think now now that I've stewed on it for a couple hours, watched the episode a little while ago now, but I think I'm totally fine with the whole corruption side of the rings being showcased in this show, and kind of across all the rings. Don't really want it to happen to the elves because, as we've already kind of talked about, like Sauron didn't actually have anything to do with those rings. But I don't mind like Durin, for example, to start just really being obsessive over this, because as far as I know, dwarves can be very stubborn, and I feel like he just found this like cheat code. He's like, holy fuck, we're gonna be abusing this. We're gonna be like he's even like, it seems like he's boosted like the overall morale of Khazad-dûm, right? Like trade is starting to pop off now, and he's taking some ring tax or whatever the hell he's calling
The
it.
ring
So
tribute. Yeah.
yeah, so I do like how he's like invigorated because of this ring, and I like that that's kind of being shown there. And obviously there's some nefarious things that have yet to really be shown from them, but things like Durin the Fourth are starting to kind of be suspect about. And I don't know, I think for the most part, like in hindsight, I do like the ring showcase in this episode, specifically with Durin and how he's able to kind of use it as his power. I like how the what are they called? Stone singers, like Disa. Yeah, so like I like how it's almost like they're old tech now by this point, right? Like,
Right,
like
yeah.
they don't really, and then that's why they're kind of upset when he was showing off the rings, and she's still pretty sus about them. I kind of laughed at the sequence when Disa like is waiting for Durin to come back with some news, and he comes back wearing like the fucking the prince necklace thing, and she's just like shaking her head. She's just so disappointed. It's like, I tried, man, I tried. And got a promotion out of it. It was kind of funny, but yeah, no, I really liked just where like what Durin's mindset is right now, and by Durin I mean like the older one, Durin the Third, and he's just pumped, and he's sending the other dwarf lords out to get their lords and sharing in the glory of these rings. So.
Well,
For a price, of course.
For
Yeah,
a
for a
price,
price.
half their fucking
He's a businessman,
minds.
this guy.
Well, that's
yeah.
Jeez.
that's where I
Jeff
think we're
Bezos
setting up.
in the mind zone here.
Yeah, we're setting up for something really interesting down the road, where at first, okay, the other communities, they're going to see like the power that he has, and they're going to want to work with him and make this deal. But then as they get their own rings, and then they start to feel this corruption too, they're not going to want to, they're not going to be cool with that deal anymore. So they're going to go in their own ways to reverse the deal, or be greedy of their own, or lie about what their spoils are, because that's their deals, that half of all of their spoils have to go to Durin's dwarven faction, I suppose. But yeah, over time, maybe they'll just start lying about what that is, and that's where we could be digging too deep and too greedily, right? Is because they're just trying to hide what they're actually doing down there, and that seems like really fun. And I think maybe the downside of that potentially is like, we don't really know those characters yet. Like maybe we've seen some of those kings before, but like I don't really know them that well as characters yet. So if we spend a lot of time with fighting between those factions, like I want to get introduced to them more and actually be invested in them for that to have impact. So I don't know if that's like a multi-season arc is what we got going on there, or if that's not really going to be a highlight and it's more just focusing on like King Durin's side. But I think there is a lot of potential there for some really interesting turmoil, not just within Durin's kingdom, but like all the other ones as well. And yeah, even like, man, throwing that, like making everything twice as expensive in one day, essentially, as this ring tribute. That's brutal. that is very, very brutal to the people of this place. So far, they don't seem to be bothered by it, because obviously they just have to have the light back, and that does so much for them. So I will see how that all works out. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that stuff. And then the other angle too, with the king when he was talking to his delve master, which I really like that title. I think it's just,
Yeah.
like I would love to be a delve master. That's great. It's just like a mining manager essentially, but said in like the coolest fantasy way. But yeah, that sequence when he's talking to him and he's like, "Where's my ring?" He's like, "Dude, it's literally right there on the table." He took it off because it was too heavy, he said. But like obviously he's already getting like a little bit forgetful and just extremely anxious when he doesn't have the ring next to him or on him directly. And we've seen that with other people before, with other people in the other Lord of the Rings movies. So I really like that scene. I thought that was a pretty fun section as well.
Like that specifically was one where I'm like, this is just too close to Bilbo's ring. You know, when he's like instantly dropping it,
fair.
and
Yeah.
like, you know, like I can be that guy that's nitpicky with all these things, but I now that, as I've already said, now that I'm just kind of stewing on it, it's like, okay, this is working, I guess, for this story, so I'll let it pass. But yeah, and even the line when it seemed like it was a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like, oh yeah, we got to go deeper, and then it's like, don't be greedy now, and they're saying like all the
Yeah.
key words of like, we dug too deep, too greedily.
They
I
definitely
was
do that a
waiting
lot in this
for-
show.
Yeah,
It's what it is. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Going in circles.
I loved everything about the Dwarven arc here. I thought it was great. I thought that when he started, popping off with that ring, it was going kind of senile and forgetful. I thought it was wonderful. I'm happy that it's not full on invisibility and he goes to the realm of the unseen or turn into a ring wraith. I don't need Durin the Third being that, but it's definitely
That'd be scary.
that would
Imagine
be
a
scary.
dwarf with the cloak
That would be pretty
chasing
cool.
you down
Chasing
in
you
Hobbiton.
down.
That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, wants his precious gems. He is he's making a turn here, and I feel like it really caught me off guard when he was playing the emotional card towards Durin the Fourth or Prince Durin, and trying to like obviously reordain him as prince. But it just caught me off guard how he was being very sincere in this moment, and I felt like he felt that he was threatened because of what Prince Durin was saying, and he didn't want that power to be stripped away. He just wanted to keep things going as they're going. But the little things where he's just squashing the idea of, I put in those restricted digging depth laws. Well, they're axed. Now we're going to go deeper. And everything with Durin's Bane, man, that freaked me out. I wasn't sure if we were going to get there in this episode, but when Disa was kind of following the little gem thing that she dropped, which I thought was a little too comedic personally, but it is what it is. It took her to where the Balrog was, I guess, and so there we are. But that caught me by surprise. I was really, really stoked on that because this thing's just roaring because she's singing and it's roaring back, and that's just crazy, crazy. So the fact that Durin is ignoring this, that's a big sign. But I can't wait. I feel like we might see the downfall of Casa Doom this season, but I feel like at the same time they'd probably save something like that. I feel like we'll get Erigion kind of going through the mill in the next 3 episodes, and then they'll probably save maybe even like the first half or like mid-season of season 3. We'll get like Casa Doom just getting destroyed, and I want them to go all out. I want to see the Balrog walking through these caverns. I want to see the Dwarven armies lining up, going to town on this thing without a Gandalf, and just fucking chaos. Like, I cannot wait to see that. They gotta blow their whole budget on this.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening this season. I think especially if they're really trying to make it 5 seasons, maybe at the end of next season, but like realistically maybe the 4th. I don't know. I just feel like it's like, what else are you gonna do with the dwarves after that, right? Like, do we just go elsewhere with the dwarves?
Go to Erebor.
I feel like go to where?
Erebor. Give us
Erebor?
Smaug. The Lonely Mountain.
I haven't seen that movie, but I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna get that at some point in the show as long as it doesn't get canceled. So regardless, when it does come, I'm hoping it'll be nice and intense. But specifically, one shot I wanted to shout out, and I was kind of mentioning this in the spoiler-free section, but I think it's when they are like starting to get like the light back open again, and there's just like a wide shot of a dwarf like walking down the steps of Khazad-dûm, and you just see like all these flames like lighting the path, and it's just like, fuck, this looks so beautiful. And then later on we get another shot of like miners just mining mithril, and you see like all of their scaffolding like along the side of the wall, and it's just like a big like massive vein of mithril that they're mining out. It's just, man, I love just seeing this right here, because you know, no matter what, if the writing of the show is terrible and I hate it, I'm still gonna be rewatching the show just because it's so fucking visually beautiful. Like, it just looks so great the way that they're able to showcase the vastness of what Khazad-dûm is, because you get a little bit of that in Fellowship of the Ring for sure, but like to actually see it now in its heights, and it just seems like a massive city, and then you can just still go like deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you know, until you hit the darkness where the shadow lies. So yeah, I really just love seeing Khazad-dûm here. I loved it in the season 1. I'm loving it again here, and You know, I didn't mind her chasing that little ball there. For a second, I thought it was like another Palantir stone or something. I'm like, what the fuck? They're just popping
Gift
these
for
out.
my daughter.
I'm like, oh no, she's gonna be talking to our Farazan or something now. But I'm glad it wasn't. But I didn't mind the humor in that moment. There's just a certain whimsicalness, I think, that like the dwarves have to them. It's kind of similar how like the Harfoots or the Hobbits kind of have, and I think Deeza also just remains like one of my favorite characters in the show. Like she is just so fantastic. And line delivery, like the actress is phenomenal. But I also just like her as a character, especially for me at least, like my first female dwarf that we experienced in Tolkien's mythos. I think she's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think is going to be the future of? I'm just going to call him Young Durin for now, where he's now I guess he's now Prince Durin. Like I don't really see him ever getting corrupted by anything because I don't think he'll be given a ring, right? Like those will be given to the other factions. Like I guess he would, in theory, inherit that one from his dad, but I don't think we'll get to that anytime soon. And I feel like he's going to be just always kind of our source for, I don't know, a positive future of the dwarves. He's going to be on like the anti-corruption side with Deeza as well, always supporting him and like probably catching on. Like if something is starting to change in him, maybe even if he doesn't wear the ring, but he's just around his dad a lot when they're working in these mines. And then if it somehow wears off on him or affects him in some way, I feel like she'd be able to reel him back in. Right. Potentially. So I think he'll continue to be good, but I don't know. The way he we got the scene, he gets promoted, and then it kind of like cuts, and then we just see him talking to Deeza afterwards. So like, I wonder if there was more conversation there, or if he just accepted it, or if he tried to push back. Mm-hmm. I don't know what his game plan is in terms of like, man, I really got to convince my dad, but I also got the promotion, which I like the promotion, so I'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's gonna. Like, even if older Durin dies and he takes, like, the reins to the kingdom, I don't think it'll be, like, a father-son type dynamic where, like, he just becomes, like, his father. I definitely think the fact that he has Deeza as, like, that anchor to kind of keep him, you know, on the right path, I think that'll be the big difference amongst those two characters. I don't know. I definitely think we're going to see old Durin kick the bucket or more or less, but right now I'm not too sure if it's going to be during the actual events of the fall of Khazad-dûm or if it's going to be something else that happens and then we have young Durin kind of running the show right before the kingdom goes down. But I don't know, I think if that is the case, it's going to be like old Durin dies during the event and then I guess now young Durin is kind of the one running the show, but also Khazad-dûm's like going down, so not much of a castle. Yeah, not much of a castle to be running with there. So yeah, but I'm not too confident on that. I think my safest bets are that young Durin is gonna stay good, and then old Durin's gonna kick the bucket. Those would be like the things I'm the most confident on, but not too sure when that or where that's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Not that this is so much of a spoiler, I didn't know that, but you're talking about like just the genealogy, and I didn't realize that Gimli is related to Durin. He's not in line for a member of the royal family, but he is a descendant. But I was just thinking like, okay, well, Thorin Oakenshield, and if I remember, this is where the Hobbit kind of tracks in, because they had to leave Khazad-dûm, and then they formed Erebor, and then Erebor gets attacked by Smaug, so then those Durin's folk go back to retake Moria, get completely fucked up, and have to just scatter around. That's where Thorin is.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Thorin's father was the last dwarf that had like a ring of power. He was like the last like standing guy on there. But yeah, I don't know what I was gonna add on top of that, but thanks for that, Taylor.
That was good. Yeah, I like that. The lore piece.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. The interesting thing with like Durin is like technically the title of Durin is like technically there should only be like one Durin alive at a time, and then like once old Durin ceases, then like new Durin is like he's Durin at that point. So that's why like the whole point of like Durin's Door and like Durin's Folk, it's like it's like a title more or less, but like it is their name.
It's a family name, even though it's a first name, I guess.
But like that's the strange thing. Like they made the decision going into the show that that just doesn't matter really. Like it's just there's going to be multiple Durins, and that's just what we're going to be running with
Well,
it.
how is that supposed to work then? Where your offspring has like
I-
their name
that's a
Dave,
good
and then
question.
when you die, they become Durin?
Maybe they don't have a name until Durin dies. And
Or
then they
like
become
it's
Durin.
like
I'm
when
not
you're on
sure.
your deathbed is when you're supposed to impregnate the princess. Like or the
You're
queen.
Durin in waiting at that point.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I wasn't too sure.
Or it could be magic. Always
It could be magic. It could be do with the rings. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Any other Khazad-dûmian thoughts?
I love the door. Again, this show
Right.
not like I feel like this show is setting us up for Lord of the Rings, but it's not. Of course, it's its own timeline. But man, seeing that door, it's like all friends can enter here. Like man, these this is probably sticking to the books, so the source material is being represented here quite well, which again is just to me sets up that this is a prequel for the actual Lord of the Rings when it's not. They're just following the source material. But just looking at the design, hearing them talk about it, it's like, man, this is it's source material, but it feels like it's the same thing.
That drawing of the door, like it was hand drawn by Tolkien himself. Like that actually is his design for it, which is really cool to see it here. I thought it was a major lost opportunity that they didn't have it light up because it's supposed to be invisible until moonlight hits it, even though we can just see like the crevices in the rock like right
Oh,
there.
plot
And they
hole.
didn't actually have the moon like light it up
Right.
to like showcase that, even though earlier on, actually I think it was last week's episode, Celebrimbor is like showing his like apprentice, like look at this. Then they go outside and it lights up. So bit of a lost potential.
guess
They
they just-
chiseled it out.
But like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be hidden, right? Like when Gandalf comes across it, it's not there until it lights up. I don't think, unless I'm really misremembering that. But I'm
No,
not
I think you're. I don't even know, man.
got some
I
crevices now.
feel like in my mind, like the design is there,
Yeah,
but maybe I'm misremembering. I'm not sure.
for the amount of times we've all seen those movies, it's funny how
I
you
know.
can just.
I,
I don't
uh,
remember.
It is one of those things that like that, you know, in the way that they repeat some lines from Lord of the Rings movies, that does feel a little nostalgia baity, but it worked for me. Like I'm like, yeah, okay, that was cool. I like that. But I am very surprised that like, oh, that door is built in Erangion and then like shipped to
I was thinking that too.
it's like, shipped to the
pre-built
Dwarven area.
door.
Like yeah, I always assumed it was, you know, built from the stone. Maybe it is built from the same stone. So they took the stone, transport it, build like, you know, shape it, and then put the magic in it, and then ship it back. It seems like a little complicated, but you know, more complicated things happen, I suppose.
It's like how do the hinges work? You know, like now I'm overthinking it at this point. Of
I
how
mean,
they
that, like
actually
even in
install
the
that.
first season, we talked about how like I don't know how far Erengian from Khazad-dûm is, but like Elrond was going back and forth in what felt like a
It's
day
actually really
each
close.
It's supposed
It's
to
actually
okay,
really
well, there
close.
You go. So
yeah.
maybe so it's not so unrealistic then if, you know, Numenor was like making a door for like the Shire or something. That would be a bit crazy, but
Yeah, because I think it was after last week or maybe the week prior, because we were talking about that, just like how fast it was. So I had to do some digging there. It is actually really quite close. So
how
in
did
this
you look into
episode,
how far Lindon is from Erengion?
I did not actually.
Okay,
So I'll
'cause
do that
I
while you guys
still
talk
am
about
very
something
curious
else.
how long
but
that takes
I'm
based
pretty
on-
sure that one's pretty close too, but not as close as
I feel like it
How's
should be
that
very
doing?
far apart based on like, well, one, they're elven things, so you'd think they'd be close, but then based on the plot in this show, you would think that they are on the opposite sides of the earth.
yeah. No, I'm not too sure.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'll look into it as we're going. Oh,
Looks like you can kind of sort of see carvings already in the wall.
oh yeah, a little bit.
And then the light
The light starts
the
shining after
moonlight
this.
makes it
and then
glow, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there we go.
But when you look at that, it does not look like the door was installed, you know?
No.
Like, it very much
No,
looks
it's
like
part of the mountain.
They're good
Yeah.
at what they do.
And like rock, you know, it's not like a tree. It's like not like it would grow over in that way. Like maybe over millions of years. But I don't know how long. How long is it then from like this era to like Lord of the Rings
It's
trilogy?
a few
era?
thousand, right?
Thousands
Okay.
of years.
So maybe
yeah.
some rocks could be, you know, crumbling together, or maybe they just round out the differences, put some filler in there, I guess.
That's very true. You know, erosion, good old some raindrops.
Shouts
Just
to erosion, you know.
shouts out to erosion.
Where would we,
doing
any
the
of
Lord's
us be
work?
without erosion? Yeah.
I guess that kind of adds to the fact that we won't see the Balrog for quite some time, obviously, because they got to go and install this door, and it's going to take a few months, I imagine. So
Yeah, could be.
So yeah, it looks like Lyndon's quite a ways away from from
It should- it
Eregion
better be.
and Moria and stuff like
To
that.
justify
like
the
it's-
plot of this show, it better be.
Yeah, like it looks like it's pretty much like coastal, with like really far away. Whereas, of course, Misty Mountains, like Khazad-dûm, that's more central. If you remember a Middle Earth
Right.
map.
Yeah. Okay, I can kind of picture it now. Yeah.
I
'Cause
was
Which
Lindon
makes
is
sense.
like
It
in
should be that way.
Mirkwood, right? Like in the Mirkwood territory, would it be?
Linden? No, Mirkwood.
That's a different Elven kingdom, right?
Yeah, that's.
But isn't Mirkwood like that whole like like
Sindarin
it's
elves.
much bigger than just Rivendell?
Mirkwood. I don't think Rivendell's in Mirkwood.
No, it's
No.
not.
I thought
No.
Mirkwood was like a huge area, but you know, my knowledge of the Middle Earth map is based off of Lord of the Rings Risk, which is gamifying the map, so I'm sure it's not
So-
totally accurate.
So picture the Misty Mountains. They like run central down a map. Let's just,
Yeah,
for argument's sake, let's just picture this. Rivendell would be on like the left side, north of kind of where, what is it? Eregion might be closer to Khazad-dûm, and then on the right side of the Misty Mountains, that's where you get like Mirkwood, like
Gotcha.
a big, and that would be where like Legolas's
Right,
fam
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
chilling. That's
Gotcha.
where the necromancers.
We leave Rivendell in the movies and go
Barad-dûr
through there, kind of.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay. It's all making sense now.
Yeah, Middle Earth geography, man. It's interesting.
Before we continue on that Middle Earth geography, let's jump to a quick ad break and we'll be right back. And we're back. I had a note that I wanted to mention here. You guys were talking about locations in Linden. Oh my goodness gracious.
Rengion, Khazad-dûm, Mirkwood, Legolas,
Legolas.
Maui, Lad, Gimle.
Uh,
Yeah.
I can't for the
Descendant of
life
Durin.
of me remember Descendant of Durin.
The door,
Yeah.
the doorway again, was it that? The glowing door?
No, it was moved on from the
Hinges,
door. You guys were
erosion.
talking about something
Yeah,
with
erosion.
Linden. And I can't for the life. Oh yes, okay, I remember. Thank you guys.
We helped.
You're
So-
welcome.
Elrond, fast travel was just a thing here. So he like one scene where he throws his cape off and he's running, and I thought he was running to Eregion, and he got there, but he just appeared back at Linden for some random reason, just to say like, oh, Galadriel was right. We need to send the armies to Eregion. I thought he would have done more damage with his team by going to Eregion, but he just retreated. So.
And then we meet the fucking most useless character in this show so far, the
Yeah.
High King of the fucking Noldor, Gil-galad himself.
He's
And
afraid.
oh my god, dude. I was so upset when we were in Linden because I'm like, we're going to get more dialogue with Gil-galad. I hate this. I hate this.
Where's
And then
me?
everything he said, I'm just like, this guy is such a fucking airhead. Like, he's the worst elf, and he's supposed to be the High King of them. Yeah, I was not a fan of that sequence, but I didn't really mind the fast travel-ness of it. I figured if Elrond and crew were like retreating from where they were, I imagine they would have went the way they came. But I agree with you, Taylor. I think it would have been more effective, for the forces of good if they actually just went to Eregion, because then you have him actually see Anatar. But I'm still not too sure if like when our characters that know what Halbrand looks like, if they see Anatar, if they're gonna be like, holy fuck, it's the exact same guy, or if they're just gonna like write it as if it's a different character, even though it's the same actor. Like I'm curious how that interaction is gonna go. If it's like, your eyes are so familiar, I wonder who you remind me of. Like I'm curious if it's gonna be that, or right away they're just like, it's Halbrand, it's Sauron.
I feel like they should be able to recognize him.
I think so.
He's got pointy ears now. He's got a cloak. He's
Blonde hair.
looking
yeah.
different.
Super charismatic though, I'd say, in this episode still, like just
Oh
pulling
man,
the cards.
making that chick get all freaking loose with her Galadriel
You
comparisons.
look like Galadriel
Yeah.
touching
the way
the
that
hair.
your light hits your hair. And she's like, oh,
I did not know. I thought elves are not supposed to be like. I don't want to say. I don't want to say easy because that's very inappropriate. I feel like, but she was just like take me now, Anatar. Like I just felt like she was just totally
Yeah.
all there, especially because she got complimented for looking like another woman that he finds that other
yeah,
women
it's
to
Lady
be more
Galadriel.
attractive.
Okay, if someone says I look like Lady Galadriel, I'll be
Yeah, it's
nice and easy.
Galadriel.
with her.
It's no ordinary elf right there.
Yeah, I didn't mind this. I think like the execution of it wasn't the best, but I do like seeing just Sauron's charisma and like how he's able to just win people over because of his silver-tongued words. So I don't mind that. I just think like the execution was a little messy. Like it almost looked like a high school rom-com or like rom-dram like sequence of like just the way you light the light, and like it just seemed out of nowhere too. Like they're talking about what were we even talking about that scene? 'Cause
They were
it's
talking
not
about
when-
Celebrimbor because he was saying like
right. he's sowing
Celebrimbor
seeds.
is not
Yeah.
himself. So he was incepting her with that idea, and
Yeah.
then throws in a little flirting on the side.
Yeah. So I think there's cleaner ways to have that dialogue sequence, but for what was happening and what was showcasing of just his power of influence over people, like I think I was able to get more of it that way. But yeah, I kind of chuckled. I'm just like, man, I do like how they're keeping Galadriel just like the gold standard of beauty amongst this world.
Yeah. I think where I really enjoyed this whole sequence is I had some big issues in those earlier episodes when Anatar was just able to seemingly get his way with no actual charisma or like good dialogue. Like he just would wave his hand and people would do exactly what he said. And there was a couple instances with Celebrimbor when he was really playing to his ego. We talked about that, of course, in the episodes. But I felt like this episode did a way better job of showing that these characters actually do have free will and they aren't just being mind controlled. So there actually is like a little bit of opposition, people who could be against him. And to me, it showed like through really well written dialogue and good acting that he is that guy. He can mess with people's minds, and not in just like a magic way. There is some magic there, but through just like words and playing to their insecurities or their dreams. Like I don't know, he spent a lot of time with this lady. Maybe she's talked about how she looks up to Galadriel a lot, and that's why he thought that compliment would be even more effective than it would otherwise. And I think it was really smart the way that he kind of positioned the conversation of, okay, plant that seed, not trust Celebrimbor because he wants to have all control. And he wants to sow chaos within these people, but not make it too over the top. So he throws that line in there of like Celebrimbor cannot be trusted. After doing all this work, he's weakened, that kind of thing. But then he converts into the flirting a little bit, almost as if he's like distracted, like he can't even finish his thought because she's just so beautiful that it's like taking over him. And so in that moment, what she's left with is, okay, thinking about this Celebrimbor thought, and he's not like pushing it like, do you believe me? Do you think Celebrimbor is evil? And really like almost overdoing it, instead just like shifting to something else and making her just like fawn over him, really love him. And now that thought is in this very positive place, in this very positive conversation she had, is also this thought of like, I can't really trust Celebrimbor. So I just thought it was like really, really expertly done. It was really, really cool detail to see, even though she's kind of been just like a random side character, like, 'cause she's been in a couple of these other episodes, but she got a lot more screen time in this one. And I think it's interesting. I think it's good that we get to see it's not just Celebrimbor making these rings, it's Celebrimbor and Anatar and this like 15 to 20 other elves who are working on this forge as well. So I think it was a good angle to get a little bit more detail about. They're kind of just picking one character here. We can't spend screen time with all 20 of these characters. They can't all have a name, but we're spending time with this one, and I think it was pretty effective for what we got here.
Yeah, 100%.
It's funny how Celebrimbor is just not doing okay, and he just basically told, like, we built these rings out of deceit, you and me. You lied to the High King. So the only way forward is to keep making rings. Like, and Celebrimbor like says the speech and goes up and starts crying in his little booth. He's not doing okay. Like I don't think he's gonna come out alive. I think he's gonna die. And I feel like at least if anyone were to kill him, it would be Sauron, because you don't want someone who can smith something of such power to be able to smith something to oppose it, I guess. Maybe he would even take his own life because he just can't handle this anymore. Like,
Jump
it's
off
just
the
so
tower.
much. Jump off the tower. I mean, when he walks out that balcony, he sees like the army of orcs. I mean, he's gonna be pretty shocked. Like, what's he gonna do, right?
Yeah. He's going to be like Denethor, light himself on fire and leap off the...
I bet on your post. Just starts screaming.
Flee, my line is ended. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna make it out of the siege of Eregion. I think it's gonna be like a big moment of him realizing what he's done, and then he has to live with that till the end of his days, even though they might be brief from that point of like realization. Celebrimbor, I don't know. It's an interesting character that maybe I thought that he was like a lot wiser and smarter, like going into the show. Like maybe this is actually quite accurate to his character. I'm not too familiar with him specifically, like back in the books and the just that era of it. But because I think initially, to me, it's just like, man, this guy's just such a doofus. Like everything that Antar says is so sus, and he's just like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's lie to the High King, keep the forges going, and then he like doesn't want to make these rings for men because men are corruptible. And then Anatar is like, well, I'm gonna do them anyways, and he's like, okay, and and he just doesn't say anything. Like at the end of the day, you're the lord of Aragion, like for the Smiths, like. You have the say to just put an end to this, but you're just gonna let this random guy, this random Jesus-like character that, I guess from his perspective, like he actually sees it as basically someone that's come from from Valinor. So it's like it is like an angelic being. So maybe that is kind of what's allowing him to look past it. But I don't know. It just seems sussery. But when we have dialogue between Anatar and him, I do like those sequences because it's just more of Anatar choosing. It's like it's an RPG like Elder Scrolls or Fallout, and he's like choosing all the right dialogue options, and he's just like winning every single one. And that's I do like seeing that showcased. And like initially before they started the Forging of the Rings, he was really just, and I think he still is to an extent, he's really just leaning into Celebrimbor's ego, and that's such a big thing with the elves, especially around this time, I would imagine, of just like them being these master craftsmen. And like earlier he was bringing up like the name of Feanor and how like he's just kind of been Celebrimbor has been like just overshadowed by his craftsmanship and how amazing he was at making things. So I don't know, I'm kind of in the middle. Like I like the way that he's being fooled, even though it seems like, as an outside viewer, it seems like you should be able to see through some of these things. But so I think for the most part, I'm in the positive on everything that's kind of going around Celebrimbor, even though I thought going into it he was going to be like a really wise character. And that's not saying he isn't, but he's just very much being played by Sauron. And I liked how he even has a line in here, right, where it's like, I forget specifically what he says, but it's like someone noted that like Anatar is like he's good at like making, let's say Anatar's talking to me, he's good at making me think that my idea is my idea, even though it was
that Durin that said that when he was confronting
I think it was, I can't quite remember, but I just really like that line right there. And then Anatar like changes the subject, and then and then he like brings up something else, and then Celebrimbor is like, oh, men? Is that who you're talking about? Like it's just like he gets played in that moment, even though he like commented on it. So I liked all of that stuff that happened. I apologize, I major paraphrased all that dialogue there, but yeah, I like what's going on with the Aragion, even though it's not going well for the elves or men or dwarves.
No, and I think it's neat to actually see an elf in this position, just being at the full front, just corrupted and just blasted by Sauron's charisma and perspective. And it's breaking him. And now Sauron's like, oh, we'll find 9 of the most purest, hardest men out there, and we'll give them these rings, and they'll be incorruptible. It's like, well, it's crazy because that's just such a huge shot towards men, because you take the most peak, I guess, men in all of Middle Earth, and you corrupt them. So it really just shows how strong Sauron is in that regard. So,
yeah, no, very well said. I think there's truth to what you're saying there, Kirkland. Of like, there are a couple moments when it feels like, Celebrimbor, what are you doing? I think for me that's mostly in like the prior episodes. I think in this one it like mostly makes sense what's going on. Like I think it was really a great moment to see from him, for him to call out Anatar and be like, hey man, you notice how you do this thing? Oh yeah, you say this thing to someone, you make them think that they thought it in the first place. Like he's just calling out the idea of Inception pretty much to him. So I like that, but then I love that the way that Anatar like gets around that is just like, yeah, well anyway, we gotta we gotta make some rings right now. And then I thought this moment was both funny but also compelling, where he's like, okay, we got to make these 9 rings, and Celebrimbor's like, no, I think we've done enough. We made the rings that we said we were going to. We aren't going to make any more. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go make them without you then. And then Celebrimbor just has like surprised Pikachu face. He's like, oh, what? you're going to go ahead and make these without me? So I think it just took him a bit to recalibrate, of be like, okay, I didn't expect that. Like I've trusted this guy so far, and like presumably the weeks or maybe even months that they've been working together at this point. But then like in that very next scene after that is when he goes to him and he's like, this is against the High King's orders. Like we can't do this. And I thought this was like the really expert part from what Anatar did, where he's like, yeah, okay, we could do that. We could stop making these rings right now, but like we've already had this level of deception to it. So there's kind of like these two routes. We can go that way, or we can just make more rings. And to me, it's kind of funny the way that comes out. But like at the end of the day, who is Celebrimbor? He's just a guy that likes making shit, and specifically likes making rings. So when he calls him out, I think it was really smart where he's like, okay, you can go one way or the other. One way is you've already gone against the High King. So we can go tell him that. You can go to Lindon right now and tell him that you betrayed his trust and lied to him and see how that goes. Or you can do the thing you love doing more than anything else, which is making shit. And so I think that was like a really, really well done scene. And then the one after that, when they're making the rings, and Celebrimbor's not helping. He's just kind of walking around the studio, just like, what the hell are these guys up to? And then Anatar's like showing how this is not going very well. And he's like, you know what? It would help a lot if you just helped us make these rings. And I think that was purposeful. He did that in that moment with everyone else around. So it made it like to Celebrimbor, it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm letting down all these people, not just Anatar. It's not like a secret conversation between the two of them. So I just feel like, once again, like Anatar, the way he's playing Celebrimbor was like expert in this episode, because I still felt like Celebrimbor had agency of his own. He wasn't being mind controlled, but Anatar was like just playing on that stuff of like, man, you already betrayed the High King. Do you want to admit that, or do you want to just kind of go ahead with what we're doing here? So I thought the pacing of it was really cool. A question I had on this was, so they talked about how, like, okay, we kind of already fucked up some of these rings. Like the dwarven rings are not very good. Maybe there's some issues with the elven rings too. And they were talking about like, okay, we're going to make these 9 rings, and we're going to try and, he had the line of like, we're going to try and take power from the 3 rings, and then we're going to redeem the 7 rings, I think is what he said. Like,
yeah.
Is in the creation of these new rings, are they somehow balancing out the power of these other rings? Like they're not planning to recall the other rings and make them again. Like, can you explain what's going on there?
The way that I took it from that dialogue sequence was, they made the 3 rings that were like perfect and everything was good. Everyone's happy. And then he made the 7 rings through deceit. Like he lied to the High King. And in doing that, it basically brought up some darkness in it. And that's kind of what Anatar mentions to him, where it's like, did you do something to the rings? Like, no, I didn't do anything. And then he, dramatic pause. We did.
Yes.
we did something. And it's because that they made them through like deceit. And I love that. I love the way that line was delivered, and just what the line was, because I think that's something that can be definitely misunderstood in just Middle Earth and Tolkien's mythos, is like the idea around magic and how it works. And I think that's totally fitting. He could have been fucking lying right to his face just to do, Sauron things, but I think that actually has traction. And like, because we did this in a dark manner of like lying to the High King, in doing that, there's probably some corruption and stuff that like came out of it, and that could have been a lie. But for me, I'm not the most well versed in these things, but I've definitely I was definitely a delve master to an extent of diving into the lore. Like, I think that actually tracks. I think that could definitely be like an accurate thing. I don't know if that actually is what it is, but I liked how it was said in a way that even Celebrimbor kind of believed him in that moment. And even if he wasn't doing well or not, like emotionally or psychologically, I think it's still a believable thing to bring about it. So we made the 3, we made the 7, that was like a bad batch, and then we're going to do 9 the right way, and that'll kind of redeem us, like redeem our sins and like fix the 7. I don't know how that, like, if you were to explain that to like Galadriel or like Gil-galad, like if they would be thinking the same way. I definitely think Celebrimbor is just kind of grasping at straws here. Like he feels like he is tainted, did this horrible thing, and this is kind of the only way to kind of redeem himself, which is definitely not the case. But that's what happens when Sauron gets his grimy little fingers on you,
Yeah. And then I think, on that too, like Celebrimbor, he kind of turns into like a bit of a taskmaster in a way that we haven't seen him before, where he's a bit brutal with his like, they were like, we made these rings perfectly to all the specifications. He's like, did you? Was every hammer strike perfect? You idiot. Like, he's calling them out, which is like a different side for him. But then like after that, and once again, expert thing from Anatar to like make him the bad guy in the situation, and people want to go to him instead as like a more trusting figure because he'll flirt with you and he'll tell you nice things and he'll tell you that every hammer stroke is perfect, so it's perfect. But then I think it's great that like Celebrimbor, like last scene we see with him, Taylor, as you mentioned, is like he's like in a corner, he's got his head in his hands, and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like after all these like the days of hard work, he's like, man, what is actually going on here? And I guess part of it is like, man, if you're making these corrupt rings that are messing with people's minds, in the case of Durin, like that's got to affect you too in some way, right? Like that's got to affect your brain chemistry. And so it's a mixture of Anatar. He's messing with his mind, he's toying with him, but then also working with these materials that like have a way of actually changing people's minds. So it makes all of the stuff that's going on with Celebrimbor a little bit more believable for me. So that's where I feel like, man, he's actually like a well-rounded character in this episode, and who would have thought a well-rounded character is more entertaining than just like some really one-note cheesy guy that he was like earlier this season. So it's all good stuff. I can't wait to see what happens with his character going forward. And as I mentioned, as I messed up earlier with the Numenor, now we're going with this orc invasion of Erangion, and we don't have much time to, like maybe we don't have much time to see what's going to happen there, and I maybe want there to be a little bit more time to just flesh some of that stuff out, which is good. But at the same time, this orc invasion could be really compelling stuff as well. So curious to see how that sequence will go down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely seems right around the corner, and I don't know how long it really takes to make these rings. It seems like we just kind of rush through the process. Like, I was kind of surprised the opening of this episode is like Durin with all the 7 that aren't even just on his finger, but like they're all in Khazad-dûm, like like made, delivered, probably free shipping today, you know, like that Amazon Prime delivery. So I was pretty just surprised by how fast it happened, but it is already episode 5, right?
And that's always the tricky thing with the show, is like just the time scale of stuff. Like we didn't see any dwarf or Erangion elf stuff last episode, so it's like, okay, maybe months have gone by or years, right? Just because of the scale of what's like going on in this age, it's kind of tricky to say. And
they did say they're already condensing the timelines, right? Like from the start of the show, they've been doing, which I think makes sense. Like to have 1,000-year-old time jump or something
have,
like that.
5 seasons to work with, it's still potentially a lot of stuff to trudge through. So it makes sense.
Even if I'm like, because I was reading through a Warhammer book not too long ago, and like there's like 1,000-year time jumps in that, and just in a book even can be so confusing because it's like you're reading about something that happens, and then the start of the next page is like, it's been 2.5 centuries since the reign of this, and it's just like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Okay, I guess we're just this is the way the world's going right now. But Dylan, I brought up, I found it's actually an interactive,
nice
Middle Earth map, and this is on artamaps.org. Arta-maps.
Not a secure website, Kirkland. You know, play with
don't put your credit card
play with a risk
and
here.
it's fantastic though, because you can choose what age you want to look at. So the way
very
the map is in the first age versus the second age. But I just want to bring this up for a couple of reasons. So, down here's Erangion, and then that's Khazad-dûm right next to it. So really nice and quick. And then of course you have Mirkwood right here.
Okay, on the other side of the
Rohavion, which Rivendell is probably like up here a little bit.
Gotcha.
And then
okay.
This, it would be like where the Shire is. Oh my god, I'm all over the place. Kind of in this area. Not on the map yet.
Bree,
and then Lindon. So Lindon's
so
quite
Lindon's
a ways
on the
away.
other side of all the Shire stuff too, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
So if Sauron wins, he'd have to go through the Shire to get to Lindon.
Oh, and the fucking funniest thing ever, right, is at the end of season 1, we have a shot of Sauron somewhere in Mount Doom for just a dramatic image saying that it's Sauron, right? Halbrand. He's in Mordor looking at Mount Doom, and then the next day, oh my god, I'm all over the place with this map.
He's all the way out there swimming.
He's all the way in the North Pole.
He was in the water at the start of the first
this is
season.
awful. Right, which would have been somewhere east, but this it's great, but it's not the easiest to work.
It's not secure.
I also wanted to come over to Numenor, which is over here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty far away.
Sorry,
is this whole island called Numenor?
Yes, this is the island
Yeah,
of Numenor.
gotcha.
And then
So wait, what's the actual name of the
are,
city that we've been spending time in?
I'm
Is
pretty
that
sure it's a
Numenor City?
Randor, like down here.
Oh, I think you're right. I think I've seen that on like
In
when they
this
do the
area?
map panning.
And then if it's true to what they said in the show, technically Anarion somewhere west on the
Gotcha,
island
gotcha.
as of
And
right
that's another
now.
like fortress, like human stronghold or man.
Anarion
I mean,
is
in
actually.
theory, this whole island has probably got cities all over it, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like everything that we've seen so far of Numenor, it's been just of this city. But
Yeah.
like I think there's still a lot more to kind of explore here, as well as the location of Anarion. So Taylor, Anarion, that's Isildur's brother. So
Right.
Elendil's
Right.
first son, second son, whatever the hell he is. Anarion actually founded Arnor, which is like the kingdom of men in the north. So that like a lot of the rangers in the time of like Aragon, like that's kind of where they are, because the Witch King fucked up that kingdom early in the Third Age there. But yeah, this is a great map. Definitely go check out this website if ever you're curious for here. And then of course down here is Mordor. No,
Sorry,
no.
so how far did he go from Mordor to Eregion? Or sorry,
Halbrand, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, how far was his journey? Where he
he
just
went from
teleported?
Erengion to Mordor and then back to Erengon. Eregion.
Eregion.
Oh my god.
So he was. So at the end of the season 1, right? They're all like near here, I think, or like somewhere down here, because they land and then they're going to Mordor and then they get fucked, and then. Yeah.
But even before that, he was in
Yeah,
Numenor.
actually, yeah, he is. Yeah,
he was
you're
in
right.
Numenor and then went there and then went to Eregion.
He knows how to fast travel.
And he was in the Southlands for a bit, which I guess the Southlands are just south of Mordor, right? Is that area down there?
Well, then yeah, like it's pretty damn big. So
Holy
like
shit!
the
Wow.
Rune.
On
there's,
Lord of the
like,
Rings
this
Risk,
down
it's a pretty
here, which
small
is-
area. But
They even have Valinor in here. Like this is a pretty sick.
Do they have Valinor in Risk, Dylan?
no, definitely not. It doesn't go that. It doesn't. Numenor is not even in that.
Oh no!
They should make a new one, a Rings of Power.
It
one.
already
That'd be
sunk,
fun.
I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, maybe it is
Yeah.
there. It's just under some water.
Water.
Cool.
What else did I have to say on Eregion? I think that was kind of it. Yeah, I'd already. Oh, actually, that's what I was gonna say. I loved the description that I forget the lass's name, but Celebrimbor's, the lesser Galadriel in comparison. That lady, the blonde lady,
It was like Merildian or something. I wrote down.
definitely starts with an M, MIR, something like that. But I love the moment when she's kind of describing what she saw, like in the unseen, like when she was wearing the ring, and like she was clearly seeing Sauron in his true form of just like the flame, and then just like the absolute terror that it just brought her. I love that so much. I love like the moment of like just terror that she had of like seeing that, and not just seeing him, but like being in the unseen and like just feeling like you're in a hellscape. Merdania.
Merdania's her name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Merdania. Great name. But I just loved what that was and how Anatar played it like super cool. And he's just like, oh yeah, well, that's Celebrimbor. That's who you saw there. It's just like, what? Really? That's what he is. And I think on one hand it's like, okay, that's a pretty wild sight to see there, and like I feel like you would need a more a deeper explanation, but it's also just like the fear that she has, like she's so scared of what she saw, and she knows that she saw it, and then now she's getting an answer from this wise man that like this is who it is, and this is why it's happening. Like it's just like right away she's believing him. That's even before the Galadriel line, I think. So I just liked how that sequence kind of went about, even though, as I was saying earlier, like initially when she's invisible, I'm like, really? Come on, that should be the One Ring that does that. But I digress.
He was testing it out. He was definitely.
Yeah, they're prototyping.
Which is weird because
Prototyping.
like that doesn't even. Yeah, I'm not even gonna go into. I'm not even gonna compare. Let's not even do it.
Why is it Sauron himself doesn't turn invisible when he puts the ring on?
That's what I was gonna talk about. But
Oh, okay.
thanks, Taylor. No, the ring affects like other people differently. Like Sauron is a being that lives in the land of the seen and the unseen. So an example of someone that only lives in the unseen is like the Nazgul. So the Nazgul only are in the unseen. That's why when Frodo wears the ring, he sees them like there in all white. And the reason why they're not all white in the land of the seen is because they're not actually physically there. Like they're wearing like a cloak where if you took the cloak off, like there just wouldn't be anything there, like they're invisible.
Yeah.
And I use invisible, like air quote, because that's what happens to Frodo or Bilbo or like whoever when they wear the ring. They don't go invisible. They go to the other realm of the unseen. And I guess just in this instance, yeah, he's just trying out things. They added a little bit too much mithril. I think that was the example or the explanation rather on like why that happened. And I don't know. I guess if I had a candidate for the show too, it's like Anatar probably specifically intended to do that so that Celebrimbor just gets flustered. It's like, oh, I have to do it myself. Like I guess I have to be
Right.
involved in this, right?
Intentionally fucking up.
Because that's what he says. He's like, oh, I think we added too much myth. And he's like, what? You added that? It's like, okay.
Then you look at my notes.
Yeah, I guess I have to do this. And then Anatar's like doing his little smirk.
Yeah.
He's probably looking at the other elves like, hey, let's, we're going to fuck with Mirandia. Watch this. Makes her go invisible.
Want to see something crazy?
Yeah, want to see
Just
something
disappears.
crazy.
I also thought it was wild because at some point, like an anvil just like drops from the ceiling, and I'm like, who the fuck just has that anvil just like
Yeah, not good.
suspended? Do the Willem Dafoe, gif looking up and that thing hanging above you. That's a terrifying image.
But why did it drop? Was it just Mirandia just swinging
Ran
swords
into it,
around
I
like
guess.
Yeah,
ran
just
into
swinging
it?
around.
Jeez Louise.
Not a very
that's not
safely
safe.
designed forge, even though it's the world's most important forge and most expensive forge. But they're just hanging
agree.
fucking death equipment from the roof, apparently.
That's how they'll fight the orcs. When the orcs come in, they'll drop that.
True.
The
Cool.
traps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have a bunch of anvils set up everywhere. Yeah, very video gamey.
Very Kevin McAllister. Paint cans hanging up.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Well, anything else? I think I've exhausted my notes.
I guess just the cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Quick sequence there where Galadriel is with the orcs. She gets released from the cage, and then Adar fiendishly says that I didn't want to capture you. I wanted to work with you against our common enemy. So, I guess the common enemy is Sauron. Is that
So
what
Adar
we're doing
somehow
here?
discovered that is Sauron.
The
then,
race of
right?
men.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's weird because when Adar killed that guy in the cave and he turned to goo, it looked different. So we still don't really know how he knows this stuff.
Yeah, he's just
Right?
he's just under the because the whole season he's been like Sauron's out there, like he's not actually
Yeah.
he's dead, but I don't think he actually knows what he looks like. I think maybe like the pairing up of the two of them. I don't know. It's interesting because like they're pairing up, but like Adar's folk, I almost just called them Adar's orcs are also still invading Eregion, right? Like we saw that in the trailer. Like that is gonna happen. I'm just
Yeah.
curious where this alliance is gonna go.
Well, I
gonna go.
guess
I mean, she doesn't have much
Anatar-
choice right now. Like, she either dies
No.
or she works with him to some extent, at least in a fake way, I suppose.
Just gonna take his eye out. That little hair clip thing she had.
Yeah. The tiniest knife of all
She'll
time.
definitely use him to get into the city. And I remembered now. So Anatar definitely alluded to Adar that Sauron, like, doesn't know what Sauron looks like, but Sauron is in Eregion. Didn't he say that to him a few episodes ago? Because I thought he planted that seed, like, I can go in there and bring him out. Like, that's the whole point of the plan. Right?
Oh, that was Halbrand's pitch to Adar.
That was Halbrand's pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He's okay. Then he gets that one orc to trail him.
Maybe
Didn't
that's where he
last very
sends
long.
Celebrimbor out. Look,
True,
Celebrimbor
true.
made these rings. He's Sauron. Kill him.
That honestly, that could be that could happen. That very well could happen.
Yeah.
That one last thing I was gonna say. We got 3 key men name drops from Anatar when he's basically just talking about, we need to find great men, and then they start bringing up the names of like Baron, which you guys remember Baron Luthien. It was briefly mentioned in Fellowship when
Sounds familiar. It's
I think they're
pretty
at
sure the name.
Weathertop and they're all kind of sleeping, and then Aragorn is singing a song, and then Frodo's asking about it, and he's telling him it's about Luthien and like the tale of Baron Luthien.
Yes. Yep.
And
That's familiar now. Yeah.
big player in like the Silmarillion book, both Baron and Luthien, and I love that story. It's a really like key Tolkien story, I find too, because even in like Peter Jackson's version of the film, like the parallel of Aragorn and
Yeah. They're
Arwen.
singing at the river and shit.
It's like the exact same situation where Beren was a man and then Luthien was an elf, and it's just like this forbidden love and how it's gonna work, and it's the exact same thing there. And I might not be too accurate on this, but someone told me that was also like supposed to be like about Tolkien's own relationship with his wife and how there was like obviously she wasn't an elf, maybe she was, but it was just that was his motivation to like do that tale from the get go, and then it's just kind of this like most important love story throughout the entire Tolkien mythos, and it just keeps popping up. So I love that we got the name drop there of Beren, and then I believe he said Tuor and Turin or something like that. Those were the other two, which more big players in the Silmarillion. But yeah, I just liked like that sequence and how he was saying how we need to get the best of men from Numenor to the east, right? As far as Rune, and he actually mentions Rune, which I don't know all the names of the Nazgul, but big one is Kamul the Easterling, which is very much from Rune. So that was kind of cool.
Cool.
Just to get that there. That's the one that actually is in the Shire, like the first one that's interacting kind of with our hobbits when they're running from Farmer Maggot's crops. You know, when
Does he become the Witch King of Angmar?
No, that is I forget his name, but no, Kamul is like the next number 2, I guess. Like Witch King would be the number 1, and then Kamul is that guy. And
That's so cool.
yeah,
Love that.
I love it.
That's good
I
stuff.
can't wait. I can't wait to meet these fucking men that are just gonna perish and get corrupted. I can't wait. I don't think it's happening this season, but maybe at the end. Maybe at the end.
I mean,
Maybe
yeah, I
at
guess the making of these 9 rings is in theory going to be
the end.
going to be delayed because of the potential orc attack on the city.
Yeah. No, very true. I'm hoping it's like again Amazon Prime delivery 2-day from the time that they ordered them. They just get sent
To
to
the
the men in
Easterlings,
2
yeah.
days.
Flying on the wings of an eagle.
Same one that fucking
Eagle delivery
sponsored
service.
Farazan apparently.
Yeah,
unwillingly.
clearly. Yeah, you can just
Yeah.
pay them off apparently.
He's like, I went in the wrong door. I was not supposed to be in that tower.
Oh man.
I'm excited to see Sauron's sales pitch when he meets these men, like giving them the rings.
I don't think it'll take much.
I don't think it
For
takes
silly
much.
men.
Doesn't take much.
It's like, that looks cool. Yeah, I'll
Same
take
thing
that.
he said. Yeah, this looks cool. Same thing he said to the elves earlier, right? Like, want to see something cool? Yeah, put this on.
Or it just falls at Galadriel's feet and she picks it up.
Yeah.
Just like be the exact same thing. Fall at the
Yeah.
men's feet.
I'm noteless
Cool.
over here.
Noteless.
No less. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to episode 5, Rings of Power Spoilers Review. We'll be back next week with episode 6, straight up to the finale. And we got Agatha starting up next week, so be sure to check that out. And Penguin starting up too. There's a whole plethora of shows. Oh, my goodness. So lots of stuff coming your way. Yeah, we will see you in the search bar.
See ya.
I really